The next little exercise we're going to work on together it boils down to pretty much taking an int value and displaying the digits in reverse order. So I've already taken care here of the boilerplate code. I'm going to go over it real quick. So we have a class reverse digits, sure, why not? We need a scanner, so I imported it here. We have a main method, and we have that reverse display method. That's going to be our recursive method. So I'm going to come back to that in a minute. In the main, I create a new scanner and ask the user to enter a value. I read that value. And then I pass that value to reverse display. So the goal is if I read the value 123, so 1, 2, 3, okay, I want reverse display to display 3, then 2, then 1, okay? That's pretty much what we want to achieve with this method here. So let's take a look at, so we have already all the boilerplate code, including the code to test it. Let's take a look at how we are going to implement this. So the rule with any recursive method is that we need to figure out first when we are going to stop, okay? So in this case here, what is the value that I could resolve immediately? Well, if the value given to me in parameter is equal to 0, I don't have anything to display. All right, so that's going to be my stop condition. But if it's different than 0, then I have something to do. So usually when we meet our stop case, right, we return something. But this recursive method here is a little bit different. It's a void recursive method. So what it doesn't return anything. So what we're going to return doesn't matter. It's what we're going to do with the value. So every time we are given a value, we're going to do something with it, pass a changed / reduced value as a recursive call, and then keep going until we reach, in this case, 0. So if I'm given the value 0, I don't do anything. But if I'm given the value, for example, 5, okay, what I want to do is display 5, then call myself with 0, because that's the next digit, to the left of the 5. 5 is we can see it as return 0 or 5, okay? So I display the 5 and then I go to the 0 and there's nothing to do there, right? So I'm going to try to use this idea and sketch out an approach here, okay? So system.out.println. That's the payload for this method. We want to display things on the screen. And more specifically, what we want to display is, well, we take the value that is given to us as parameter during this recursive call, and we apply modulo 10 to it. So modulo 10 just means that we are going to get pretty much the last digit of that value, okay? And then how do we call ourselves recursively? Well, reverse display. Let's say that I have a number like 123. I like that number for this example, 123. So if I do value modulo 10, I'm going to display 3, right? So now I could say, well, let's get rid of the 3. Let's go to the next digit leftwise, okay? So I want to display the 2. So I'm going to take this value. I'm going to divide it by 10. So the parameter expected to the method reverse display is an int. So I divide value, which is an int, by 10, which is an int, pass it as an int value to an int parameter. So there's going to be some rounding. So I'm going to go from 123 to 12. And that's exactly what I want, okay? I display the 3, and then, so out of 123, I take the 3, I display it, and then I go and I consider 1, 2, 12. I take the 2, and then I go and I consider 1, which is the only digit left, and then I divide by 10 again, I get 0, and then I know I need to stop, okay? So that's pretty much what we are headed to implement here. Interesting thing is, well, let's see first if it's compiled, and we'll give it a spin, okay? Let me enter an integer, so I'm going to use 1, 2, 3. So right now, I display 3, I display 2, and then I display 1. So the order is correct. This is a reverse order, we read from left to right. Well, these are the digits displayed from right to left. Okay, so the interesting thing is that during this recursion, right, I am actually first displaying my result and then calling myself recursively. If I was doing the opposite, which I just I just permitted there's 2 lines here in the code. If I was doing the opposite, obviously, when I enter 1, 2, 3, I would first display 1, 2, and 3. How does that work? So I really recommend that you do a trace here, and even better, a trace with a program stack execution diagram. Okay, that's really going to help you understand recursion. It's that kind of little exercise and playing with them and changing the order, looking at what happens, that are going to really help you understand recursion. In this case, when I'm called with 1, 2, 3, right, first call to the reverse display method, so 123 is different than 0. I divide 123 by 10, okay, so I get 12, and I call myself recursively with a 12. So recursive call, the parameter now is 12. 12 is different than 0, okay. So I divide by 10 again, I get a 1. Call myself recursively. I'm in the third activation record for that method, okay. The third recursive call. I'm called with the value 1. It's not 0. I divide by 10, and I call myself recursively a 4th time with the value 0. 1 divided by 10 in integer, it's 0. So now this is a value 0. I skip this and return. So I'm back to my third call, okay, with value 1. So now I can say, okay, let's do 1 modulo 10. Well, that's going to be 1. I can display that. And then I return. I return to the second call that had parameter 12. Okay, 12 modulo 10. They give me 2. I display 2. And then I return again to the second call. And I have 123 here as parameter. So when I do modulo 10, I get a 3. This is what I display here, and then I return. Okay, and I'm done. So be careful about, I'm going to put back the correct solution given the requirement we have, but be careful when you are dealing with recursive function like this. You can actually play with the order. Do you do your recursive call first, or do you do your recursive call after you actually do your payload work, okay? And that matters. That's going to change, obviously, the end result.